Welcome back to the Evan Phillips Show, guys. In today's episode, we are discussing purchasing an investment property for those people who are looking to create some passive income or just learn how to do it. There's actually going to be a two-part video just because there is a lot to cover. So I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode. Stay tuned. All right, guys, as you just heard, we're going to be talking about purchasing an investment property. So I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks on how this works. There will be a lot of information in this video, guys. So you're definitely going to want to take advantage of the fast forward, rewind, and pause features of YouTube. Also, you're going to want to have a pen handy to take some notes, or your iPhone or whatever phone you're using, so you can remember some of the things we discussed here. There will also be some sites and things that you guys are going to want to reference. I'll put all of those in the link in the description below. So as we go through the video, you'll have access to those by simply going down there. All right, and as you guys know, this channel was designed to help people with their personal finances, right? So the very first topic I want to discuss is your financial fitness. I mean, this is just critical to obviously doing something like this. I would say this is slightly advanced for the person who, wants to get into investing in real estate and stuff like this. So I can't just skip this out. So if you feel that you're already financially savvy and you've got everything you need there, you can skip probably the next 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, so some of the first things we want to discuss when talking about having yourself financially ready, it's just like anything else. If you guys are going to run a 10K, you're not going to be able to get up from eating cheeseburgers and working 12-hour days right into running this marathon. So you're going to want to make sure that you have these things in line. So we're going to talk about your FICO, your DTI, your credit report, assets, income. These are things you're really going to want to make sure you have in line, because when you're doing something like an investment property, you want to give the lenders zero reason to deny you, okay? So first thing we want to talk about is FICO. Like I said in the beginning of this video, guys, we're going to put links in the description. I have discussed your FICO in some of my prior videos, so you can look through those as well about your FICO. But the first thing you want to do is look at your FICO, know where you stand. That's in the link in the description below. Also, you're going to want to know your debt to income ratio. If you don't know how to calculate that, I'm also going to leave that in the link in the description as well on how to calculate your debt to income ratio. You're going to want to make sure you're 40% below. I would say the lower, obviously, the better, right? So stay below 40%. And then we're going to want to look at your credit report, right? So you're going to want to make sure you don't have anything on there like collections, judgments, bills that you haven't paid, anything that looks negative from a lender standpoint. And in general, you just don't want to have these sort of things on your credit report. So these are just kind of some of the prerequisites before we even get into, getting a second home or an investment property. Also, income. You're going to want to make sure that you have a steady stream of income. Typically, you want to be on the job for 2 years, as they'll request W-2s, tax returns, and these sort of things. So you definitely want to have that in. Also, assets. So assets can be anything like CDs, IRAs, 401k, money market savings account, a checking account with money in it. All of these things are counted towards assets, and this is very important on the lending side of things when it comes to getting real estate, because in most cases, you already own a home. So once you guys get all of this set, your credit is where it needs to be, there's nothing on your credit report, you know you're in good standings on your debt to income, and everything else looks good from that standpoint, I would say you're in shape to get ready to purchase an investment property. Okay, so there's typically a couple ways you can do this. Clearly for time, we're not going to be able to discuss all options. I'm going to discuss some of the most common ways that people do this, and I personally done myself. The average person that I speak to that's looking to purchase a second property or invest into real estate or start purchasing other properties typically own a home. So this first section, we'll discuss, some ways that you can use either your home or other means to get into a second home or fully outright purchase it. It's just going to depend. So it doesn't mean that, if you don't own a home, you can't do this, but some things will just obviously need you to have a home. Let's talk about the first step. So let's say that you own a home and there's equity in that house, right? What a lot of people will do is they will use products like a home equity line of credit or a home equity installment loan to either purchase another property or to use funds as a down payment towards another property. So let's talk about home equities. There's typically two different types of home equities, and I've actually discussed some of this in a prior video. There's a home equity line of credit, which is a HELOC, and then there's a home equity installment loan, which is an installment loan. So I'm not going to be able to get into all the differences between the two in this video, but we're just going to talk about these two in regards to purchasing your next property. So let's assume that you own a home and you're living in it today. Let's say you bought it maybe 5 or 6 years ago for $100,000, and today it's worth $200,000. That's great. So the difference between what you owe and what it's worth is your equity. So looking at this, if you're living in your home now and there's equity within your house, you can access some of that money by getting in that line of credit or the installment loan. Now, the way that works is you're going to take a second mortgage out on your existing property. So you're going to have the property you live in. Your mortgage payment won't change. It's going to stay exactly as it is today. But you will have a second mortgage. So that puts a second lien on your property. The first lien is for the primary mortgage. The second lien is for your secondary mortgage or your home equity line of credit. Now, once you get access to this line of credit, once again, I'm not going to go into all the details on how the lines of credit and the installment loans work, but I will say that this gives you typically up to 80% loan to value. So if you don't know how to calculate your loan to value, I'm also going to put that in the link in the description below, and you can simply find out how much equity you have in your home. Now, there's some great tools out there like Zillow, Redfin, Trulia. I personally use these on a regular basis just to kind of see where values are. And then you're also going to be able to see, obviously, you'll know what you purchased a home for and do some, some calculations just to see where you think the value of that home might be. So once you close on your line of credit, you're going to have access to that money. Now, what people typically do, depending on how much equity you have in your home, if you have enough for, let's say, $100,000, then you might be able to buy a small house. So most people that I speak to, I would say have lived in the home 5 to 10 years, right? So they're not going to own the house outright, which means that they still owe money on that first mortgage. So most people have some equity in their home, but I wouldn't say enough to purchase outright a property. So basically what you'd be able to do is you'd be able to take some of those funds out of the equity on your home, and you could use that to purchase another property. So for example, let's say there's a small condo or a townhouse that you want to purchase for maybe $70,000 or $80,000. You can take that equity out of your home and purchase that condo or townhouse with your equity. So now you've gained access to those funds in your home and you've purchased that second property. Now typically, and once again, I can't cover everything, but on the home equity line of credit, typically there's a 10-year draw period and a 20-year repayment period. So your payments are typically going to be a lot less than obviously what you want to make for your rent. This is also something we're going to discuss in the second part of this video once we get there. So just hang tight and we'll get to that. This is one way, if you didn't know, to take equity out of your home, either through the home equity installment loan process or the home equity line of credit process. These are both amazing ways to gain access to another property. Now, there is another way as well. If you don't want to use the equity within your home and, kind of like we talked about in the beginning there, if your debt to income ratio is below 40%, and you have great income, you don't have a lot of liabilities, credit cards, auto loans, monthly payments on different things, and you can afford another mortgage, getting a mortgage on that property as a primary mortgage might be a great idea. So if you don't want to go through the equity route, your debt to income is where it needs to be, and you can financially afford that property, you can simply apply for a mortgage on that property as a second home or an investment property. I would say whatever the purpose of that property is for is what you're going to want to purchase the home for. So if it's an investment property, make sure you're using it as that. And if it's a second home, make sure you're using it as that. Now, if things change in the future, like it's a second home today, and then later down the road it turns into an investment property, that's fine as well. So these are some ways you can purchase that second property without having to deal with the equity in your home. Now, going back to the home equity for just a second, if you don't want to take out the full amount to purchase a home, so let's say that you only have $60,000 in equity that you can access within a home equity product, and your property is, let's say, $150,000, it doesn't mean that you can't still purchase this property. Another thing you can do is, if you, let's say you don't have access to, $40 or $50, $60,000 to use as a down payment, what you can do is you can take $40 or $50,000 out of the equity in your home that you're living in now, and you can use that as a down payment towards a primary mortgage on that property. So this way, if you have money that's tied up in other things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, 401ks, IRAs, CDs, etc., and you don't want to touch that money, or you don't have access to it, liquid access to that money, taking money out of the line of credit is a great way to pay your down payment. So this is just kind of a savvy way, I would say, to take advantage of the line of credit, especially if you're in a situation where you just don't have 100% equity within a home, since you're still paying a mortgage on it. Now, there are going to be some calculators and things like that you guys are going to want to use. Just great tools to help you calculate some of these numbers. And you're going to want to do just follow some of the links in the description here, as they will give you steps on how to run these calculations. And it's really simple, guys. It's really not that complicated. So a lot of times this can feel overwhelming. Just, even watching this video, you may just be like, oh, well, that's too much work. I got to do this, and I don't know how to calculate that. But really, honestly, guys, it's not too difficult. If you follow the steps and you follow the instructions, you will learn a lot, and you'll also gain, because when you are making passive income, it's such a good feeling to be able to lay your head down at night and know that you're making money without being at a place or working a job or even running a business. So it's a great feeling to be able to have access to this sort of thing. And I'm going to tell you, after you do your first one and you start reaping the benefits, you're going to want to do it again. So I would definitely recommend real estate as a great way to create some of that passive income, not only for your family. So here's some things you guys want to think about. When someone is paying your mortgage for you, you're getting paid twice. And this is what I mean. So they should be covering, once you do this right, and we're going to cover some of this in the next video, but you're going to want to make sure, let's say your mortgage payment is $1,000 a month, right? Your rent shouldn't be $700 because you're not even covering the liability. So once again, in the next video, we're going to talk about some of that. But once you're making that payment towards your mortgage, they're covering the mortgage for you and they're paying it down monthly. Not only that, but they're also giving you the passive income. So whatever your net proceeds are, so if it's $1,000 and you're charging them $2,000, then you're netting $1,000, which is amazing. So not only do they pay you twice, but let's say that you decide to sell that home. You're going to get money back in equity. So in a perfect scenario where the value of your home is rising and it's being paid down, when you sell that home, you're going to walk away with a nice chunk of money. Hopefully all that's been paid into it, plus the appreciation from the equity. So these are great ways to not only future-proof or have investments. I can say on the second investment property that I've done, in the short time frame that we've owned it, I would say there's probably about a little over $200,000 in equity. So what that means is, if I sell this house right now, I can walk away with a little over $200,000, giving the values where it needs to be. So these are some great things that you guys want to think about. All right, guys. So the last way that I want to talk about, and this is, once again, this is for someone who already owns a home and they have equity in their home. But this is a little different. This isn't using a second mortgage or a home equity line of credit or home equity installment loan. This would be by doing what you call a cash out refinance. So on a cash out refinance, this is a great way to do a refinance, guys. Especially right now, rates are still pretty decent. I mean, we're starting to see the market rise with rates, but I'll try to explain how this works. So basically, a regular refinance works like this. Let's say you've been living in your house for 10 years. When you bought your house, your credit was shot and you had 6%. It's just not a good deal, but you got into the home. Well, now it's time to go ahead and refinance, get a better rate, get better terms. You may be able to get rid of mortgage insurance due to the value increasing. And I know this is a lot, guys, so if it's going over your head, that's okay for now, but just follow me here. But once you get refinance, that's going to help to lower your monthly payment, and it's going to help you save money on interest as well. And you could also sometimes shorten the term. So you may do something like, since you're going from 6% down to a 3%, you might be able to shave 10 years off your loan, keep the same payment, and have a lower rate. So that is extremely beneficial in reducing your overall cost, helping you pay the mortgage off sooner, and saving money. Now, a cash out refinance is basically that same process, but the only difference in this transaction is we're going to take some equity out of the home, and then we're going to add that back into the mortgage balance. So let's say we did the same thing. We refinanced the property, but you want to add in about $80,000 back to your mortgage, but you're still lowering the rate. Okay, so you're going to take that equity out, add it to your mortgage balance. In turn, the mortgage company will give you a credit of $80,000 at closing. You're still lowering the monthly payment, and you may keep this term about where it is, extend it or shorten it. It just depends on you, where your monthly payment comfort is and all of that. But those details are worked out between you and the mortgage loan officer. Now, once you take equity out this way, you're only going to have that one lien on your property. You're going to have one mortgage payment. You're not going to have a second mortgage and all the other things going on, but you'll have access to that $80,000. So you could either use that $80,000 or whatever that amount is, up to 80% loan to value of the property. Like, once again, if I'm losing you here, just hang tight. But basically, this money would allow you to purchase that other property or use it as a down payment towards the next property. So a cash out refinance does a couple things. Number one, in the right scenario, it lowers your rate. Number two, it allows you to have access to cash. And then number three, it can lower your monthly payment. So the cash out refinance process is also a great way. I wouldn't say one is necessarily better than the other. It just kind of depends on what your goal is to accomplish. Once again, these are conversations that go really far in depth, and the purpose of this video is just to give you some ways to help you understand how to purchase this other property and how to gain access to the funds and what you're going to need in order to do this. So I hope that you guys have some takeaways from this video, whether it's you learned about home equities or you've learned how to calculate something by some of the things in the link in the description and so forth. So that does complete the first video of the two. I hope you guys had a great takeaway, and let's catch up in the next episode. You guys have a great rest of your day.